Hello, my beautiful people of the world. If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And also, by the way, almost forgot the bell too. Click the bell. Yes, that bell over there. You clicked it? Okay, great. And if let's say I'm not a linguist, I'm just a random guy, and you say, "Yo, so what do you do? What do you do for a living?" He's like, "I'm a linguist." Oh, how many languages you speak? I'm pretty sure you get this question always.
Yeah.
What? First of all, what's your answer to that? And third, in how many languages do you actually speak?
So when I'm trying to be funny and maybe a little difficult, I just say all of them. Because really linguistics teaches you the foundations of all languages.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, technically I speak all of them. I just haven't practiced yet, right?
Nice.
So, but that I usually get looks like shock. Like I don't know how to respond to that, and I realize I've probably gone too far. So I have studied and at one point was conversational in 14 languages.
14?
But I don't keep them all up
Of
because
course.
there's just not a need to,
Mhm.
right? And so when I'm doing field work, I'll become conversational in the languages I'm working on. But then after I don't go back, or for whatever reason I can't go back, I don't keep it up, right? So yeah, but at one point there have been 14 languages that I can have conversations in.
So this is a very very interesting. 14 languages where you're conversational. Would meaning like if we were to take a little bit of modernity here, would that on the actual or cipher scale, would that be like what would that look like?
Oh, most of these would probably be like an A2 level.
A2 level.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Maybe some of them maybe a little bit higher.
Mhm.
But those tests are designed to measure something that most people that use language don't really care about. They don't really care about how proficient you are, professional you are, how much vocabulary you can use. They just want to know, can you ask for where the bathroom is, and can you make me laugh, and can we have this interpersonal relationship? And as long as you can do that in the language, it's fine, right? And so you're going to make mistakes, and people love that, and you're going to get it right, and people love that too, right? So.
something very interesting that I've been thinking about, like is it possible, like let's say you have a language like Xinka, how would you express ideas that are not part of Xinka culture? I've heard some people, for example, I've watched a podcast about this guy who was translating the Bible into I think it was a language in Indonesia, and like we don't have a word for camel, you don't have a word for that. How does a language someone who's into language documentation, how they deal with things like that?
So the community gets to decide. As a documentary linguist, I never make a choice for a community. So if there's a word that they don't have or they want to change for whatever reason, I hold a community meeting, and say, okay, what do we want to do here? What do you think the solution is? In the case of the Xinkan, they just borrow words from Spanish. So if they don't have a word for some idea in Xinkan, they just use the Spanish word, or the Spanish word with Xinkan pronunciations or something like that, right? In other communities, they say, well, we're just going to invent new words, but use our language as building blocks to build those new words. Cool. And so they invent new words on the spot, right? And other times they're like, well, it's a big discussion, and they can cause a lot of political conversations about, well, how do we do this? What does it mean to even speak this language, and all these things, right? And that's for the community to decide, not for me, right? So,
tell us a little bit about your work in Xinka.
Xinka was the only non-Mayan language spoken in Guatemala. And it's a family of 4 languages. We have records of the languages from the Spanish invasion. But we didn't really start recording the language until the 1700s. There wasn't any records until the 1700s. So about 200 years, we really don't know what happened after the invasion until the 1700s. And then word lists and grammar started coming out. But by that time, the language had started to change. Surely, we don't know for sure how much, but there was a lot of borrowings from all kinds of languages, and pre-Spanish invasion, the Xinkan languages were spoken in this cultural system where there was a lot of borrowing from Mayan languages and from Uto-Aztecan languages. And so they have lots of borrowings from all kinds of languages all over the world. So there's all over Mesoamerica. And it's just a fascinating system. Some of the cool grammatical principles of Xinka, maybe I'll tell you those. Your listeners might not know what these words mean, but I'll still tell you. My favorite part about the grammatical structure of Xinka is that it has semantic alignment, which is fairly unusual in the world's languages. And phonologically,
what's that?
Semantic alignment is so you speak a language like German where you have the subject agree with the verb, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in lots of languages, you don't agree with the subject unless the subject has a particular semantic role, right? Actor or undergoer or whatever. And so in Xinkan, the system of agreement is about the semantics rather than the grammatical relations of subject and direct object, which is pretty awesome. And then in the phonology, there it's a really big phonological inventory with just about every consonant having a plain and a glottalized counterpart. So think of glottalized as like a more emphasized consonant of some sort. So.
That's cool. I wonder, in your work as a professor now, like you've had years of experience both as a field linguist, well, I guess as a field linguist and doing other research, presumably. How does that carry over into like professorship, into teaching? Is there like one that you prefer over the other, or are you able to kind of combine both? Do you mentor students?
This is a great question, and I'm going to answer it, but I have to give a little caveat. I'm not saying I don't like my job.
Roast.
But I do prefer doing field work over teaching. I love teaching. I love being with students. But there's something invigorating about being in the field and learning languages and documenting languages. So.
Mm-hmm. Just something interesting. I used to camp out on Chris's office when I was struggling with phonology. By the way, phonology is harder than you think. That thing's a monster. And I used to say, Chris, I think this might be easier when you're in a hammock in the middle of the Amazon drinking coconut water than just doing this for a passing grade.
I don't know if you remember this, but I said everything's easier in a hammock when you're drinking coconut water. So yes, you're right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But it sounds like you're a great professor because you helped Felipe pass the class. So.
Yeah, I really do enjoy being a professor. So.
That's awesome.